Welcome to Light and Shadow. I'm Indigo, and this week I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about why we see the world through different lenses and perspectives. This week I am going to be leaning more towards my own story and not so much towards technical explanations and definitions. I am doing so because, of course, my own story is how I see the world, and I do have a sister, so I'm going to kind of use our experience to explain how we see things differently. And then, of course, you can take that and relate that to your own story or use it to notice the different perspectives within your family. Because not only do me and my sister have different perspectives, but me and my parents have different perspectives as well. So these perspectives and dynamics are things that I've noticed in my life, my whole life. I've just now, though, a little over a year ago, come to realize and fully understand why these dynamics are the way that they are in my family. And I'm about to turn 32. So that says a lot. It takes a long time, even when you're paying attention, to figure out why things are the way that they are. And I have truly been paying attention my whole life and been trying to figure all of these things out. So again, like, if you don't have these things figured out in your own family, like, do not feel behind. Do not feel like, oh, why haven't I figured this out? Why haven't I done this? Why haven't I done that? Like, do not feel that way at all. Like, it takes a long time to figure it out, especially when you're the only one in your family doing those things. Like, it's a little different if you have other people actually acknowledging the things going on in your family that aren't necessarily right and you have someone to kind of work with. But if you're doing it all on your own and sitting there having to take the steps back and analyze the situations and figure out why things are happening the way that they're happening, it can take a long time. And it's also hard because you're having to expose yourself to unhealthy situations to figure it out. So again, do not ever feel like you're behind with these things. Hopefully my sharing my story can help you figure them out a little faster, and it can kind of be that person helping you along, even though I'm not in your dynamic and I can only tell you about mine. But that is something that I wanted to get across very early in the video, because just, I don't ever want anybody to stall themselves out or feel any type of way because you feel behind at all. So let's just jump into the story. Also want to preface it by saying I might get a little bit emotional. I'll try to hold it together as best as possible, but no promises. As well as it might kind of seem like I'm jumping around a little bit because of how I've pieced these things together throughout my life. But all of the things that I'm saying are going to be relevant to how I got to the conclusions that I've got to. So just hang in there with me, okay? So my mom and dad, right? They were living in Las Vegas, Nevada, and got pregnant with my sister. She is 5 years older than me. I have heard these stories 1,000 times, and so again, this is how I've pieced together what I know now. So my dad was an alcoholic. He also dabbled in substances. My mom was very much an alcoholic, and that is still her main drug of choice, as well as had a bigger problem with substances throughout time as well. So the dynamic between them was already not very good. My dad and mom's relationship was already very rocky, and my mom says that he cheated on her a lot and like all sorts of things. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what she said over and over throughout my whole life, so you know. So then my mom gets pregnant with my sister, and my dad is not interested at all. He does not care. He does not show any ounce of interest in the pregnancy at all. He doesn't show any care about my mom being pregnant, even as a person or anything like that. And, you know, my sister finally comes along, and he's just like really not interested in being a father or in the dynamic at all. He was the type of father that he's going to fulfill his duties, as in taking care of putting a roof over your head, but that's about it. And again, these are stories that I've heard from my mom over and over and over again, so this is how I've learned this information. And so he did not care about my sister at all. My dad was also physical. That's the word that I'm going to use from here on out when talking about physical, you know what I'm saying? He went too far with his physical discipline, and it caused a lot of harm. And so he would do that to my mother, as well as to my sister, and eventually me as well. And there's more to different dynamics with that I'll get to later as well, but for now we'll leave it at that. So he would get physical with my mom and then my sister as well. And again, my sister's 5 years older than me. So when my mom got pregnant with me, all of a sudden, for some reason, he's interested and he cared. And he didn't really care about my mother as a person being pregnant, but he cared about the baby that was inside of her. And then, and again, this is all my mom's thing, okay? And so when she tells it, she's very, very agitated and very disgusted with it. And when she tells the story about my sister and how he was when she was pregnant with my sister and how he was when she was born, my sister was born, my mother talks about it in a very melancholy, very sad, depressed way. And she's very upset about it. And then when she talks about this situation when she was pregnant with me, again, she's very disgusted. She's very irritated. She's very annoyed. And so again, when she's pregnant with me and my dad cares about the baby, not necessarily my mom. And then when I was born, my mom says he's carrying me around the hospital like I'm a trophy, and he's showing me off and like, oh, look, this is my daughter, and like, just, you know, whatever. I've heard these two stories from my mother my whole life, a million times over. She's an alcoholic, so she says the same thing over and over and over again in the same ways over and over and over again. And these two stories are burnt into my brain like my name, you know? And again, I've noticed over time how she speaks about these two stories so differently and how her feelings around both of the stories are so different and so on and so forth. Anyways, we're born, right? My sister's 5 years older than me. I'm born. My dad acts the way that he does about it, and so on and so forth. They're both drinking. They're both still dabbling in substances, and all of a sudden, here I am, and I'm observing the world as I am, as I grow up and whatnot. And me and my dad were best friends. When my parents left and I was abandoned, losing my dad was very hard because he and I were so close, and I was like his fifth appendage. That's literally the joke that we would always make when I was young, because we would always do things together. And losing my mom was not hard really at all, because as I was growing up, she wasn't around anyways. Her substance use got worse after I was born. And she's literally told me it was when I was like just a couple of years old that she really started leaving a lot and stuff, which I believe because I don't remember a time where she was around and stuff, whereas my sister does. And again, she's 5 years older, so their relationship is different, and the way that my sister saw it was different and all sorts of stuff. So when they left, it wasn't hard for me to lose my mom because my mom not being around was already normal. Losing my dad was hard because of how close we were. And so that was my point of view, right? That's how I saw the world growing up. And again, my dad was the more responsible one out of the two. Like, he still drank and would be physical and all of the rest of the stuff. But he was still the one that, again, provided the roof. He was there every single day. Like, he was consistent in his dysfunction. So it was different, you know what I mean? And so losing them for me was different than it was for my sister, especially because of the way that everything went down in the events that led up to that and whatnot. But again, different story. When they left, I was 8 years old and my sister was 13 years old. So again, very different perspectives in the world in general, let alone with the things that we had been through. And I didn't necessarily notice the way that the things that happened when I was a kid affected my sister until we were a bit older. And my mom ended up getting off the streets of Vegas in like 2010, I think. And I was like a junior in high school, almost senior. And my sister was already out on her own in the world and had a kid and like all sorts of stuff. And my dad finally got clean my senior year because he got 5 DUIs and it was either prison or rehab. Of course, he chose rehab. And so that is kind of when I graduated is kind of when I started to notice the effects that all of these things had on my sister and the different dynamics in our family and whatnot. Like, my sister and my mom were always really close. I always felt like an outcast with those two when all three of us were together because the way that they would like buddy up. It's like when there's a group of 3 girls and you can just tell that the other 2 were like better friends than you are with either of them, and you're just kind of there. You know what I mean? Like, that's literally how it was with my sister and my mom, and still kind of is to this day, just because the dynamics haven't really changed, but whatever. And then when it comes to like my dad, I don't play into the dynamics. So me and my dad are not close at all. And yet my sister, this is what I started to notice as I got older and whatnot. My sister strives for his approval. And I always thought that that was very interesting because why? Like, why would you care about this person's approval who has done nothing but hurt you and treat you like you're irrelevant? And like, there's so much more to the story even, but like, he's done very not okay things to her, more so than me, because like our dynamics are different, right? And so he was crossing lines with me, and in a different way, as well as not as often. And there were times where he would come after me when I was a kid and before our dynamics got cemented in, that my sister would take the brunt for me. He would start coming after me and she would put herself in between it and redirect his anger towards her instead of me. And I remember certain situations vividly, visually. But, you know, so that's just to say, like, why would you care about this person's approval that you should, like, hate? Like, I hate that word, but, like, why? I just didn't necessarily understand it. And so that, again, that's me as like a young adult. I'm just like noticing that she goes out of her way to get his approval. And when he doesn't approve of her, she, even if it's not stated that he doesn't approve of it or anything, if she gets the vibe that he is not approving of what she's doing, or if she's not achieving well enough to get praise from him, then her response to that is to overachieve, to stress out about it, to obsess over it, all of the things, right? And so again, I observe that from the outside and from somebody who's removed herself from those parents. And I question why she's doing that. And then, of course, I can still remember my relationship with my father and all of the things, right? And so over time, I've started to notice these things, and I noticed that about my sister. And then now, here I am in life, and I've started achieving the things that I've started achieving, and I'm doing the things that I'm doing in my life. And there have been a lot of time that, there's been a lot of time that my parents haven't been in my life. I've just straight cut them out, like I don't talk to them at all, whatever. And then there's been time that I have allowed them to be in my life and whatnot. So in that amount of time, I've noticed that if I do achieve something, my mother does not praise me at all. And I don't strive for that praise or anything of the sort. I've just noticed that there's a difference. For instance, I got an apartment and did all the things to it that I did. I have nice things. I keep my house clean. I do X, Y, and Z, right? She comes over, not one word about, oh, nice place, it's very clean in here, nothing of the sort. Then we go to literally my next door neighbor's house, who has the exact same apartment as I do, just different things inside of it, of course. We walk in it and she's oohing and awing about how nice it is and how clean it is and like all of this stuff, right? So then I noticed that. Then I get a brand new car. Like, okay, not brand new. It was a 2016. I got it in 2023, I think. So it was however many years that is. First car I've ever bought. Way newer than I expected, way nicer than I expected. And again, I'm not looking for people to like hoop-de-ha over my achievements or anything. And it's my mom. Like, if someone gets in my car and they don't really be like, oh, nice car, then okay, cool, like that doesn't bother me. If my mom gets in my car for the very first time and does not even say like, good job getting this car, doesn't say, oh, nice car, like nothing, not even an acknowledgement that I just went from asking you to borrow your car to having this nice of a car. Kind of weird, bro. So then I also noticed that she will do that again with other people, and especially my sister. She will always talk up her accomplishments, even if they're small. So I just noticed the difference, right? And then I'm sitting there thinking about it, and I realized that that's why her and my sister's relationship is as close as it is. Because my dad was already being physical and crossing boundaries with my mom before my sister was born. Then my sister was born, or my mom was pregnant with her even, and my mom realized how disinterested my dad was in the pregnancy and my mom. And when my sister came along, my mom says, if he's already being this way with me, and now I can see he's being this way with her, then it's going to end up being even more unsafe. So I have to hold this child close to me so that I can protect us both. Then I come along, and my dad feels the way that he does about that and acts the way that he does about that. And my mom is like, well, what the hell? Why are you so interested in this child, and what is so special about this child that you finally love it and you finally care about it? And like, compared to us, like, what's the deal here? And so my mom grew a resentment towards me because of the way that my dad felt differently about us. Again, no fault of mine. Like, I had no part in this other than it literally existing, but you know, not the point. And so because of all of this, my mom and sister, to an extent, choose to treat me as if I'm less than because my dad treats them that way. And I know that that's like kind of hard to wrap your brain around, because it definitely is for me. And that's exactly what it is. I have, since I've figured this out, spoke to my father about it, and laid all of those things out in said way. And he literally said, yep, I can see that. I can follow that, and I can see exactly why that is the way that it is. And he even said, like, yeah, I have noticed that about your sister, and I don't really understand why. And so I kept going and telling him la-di-da-di-da, and I got to the very end, and he was like, oh, I didn't even realize that. And didn't realize that that's why she does these things, and that I made her feel that way, and like X, Y, and Z, or that it's turned around and made them treat you the way that they are. And I was just like, yep, here I am. So like I got confirmation from my father about that being that way, and it making sense as to why it is that way. And even since then as well, I've brought all of those things up to my mom as well, who I have a rocky relationship with and situation with. I don't speak to her. And so she gets very offended by a lot of things that I say. And I know some of the reasons as to why, and some of them I don't because I haven't dissected them yet. Whatever. That being said, I brought these things up to her in X, Y, and Z way. And instead of choosing to acknowledge it and fix it, she chose to no longer have a relationship. And, you know, there's not much that I can do or say about that. The fact that she doesn't even deny it further confirms the fact that that is the way that it is, besides the fact that my father already did confirm it. And like, here I am, like, what, we're gonna argue about the way that you've made me feel my whole life? Like, no. I know exactly how you've made me feel. And even if I'm not 100% correct on why I've been treated that way from you my whole life, that has to be part of the explanation, as well as it doesn't really matter why you've treated me that way my whole life. What matters is that you're treating me that way and that it's making me feel bad. And either we're going to fix it or you're not going to be in my life. And so that is my spiel on why people see things differently. Again, all 4 people in my family see things differently just from 2 events in life. My sister being born and me being born. Which, weird, right? But that's how it is. So I see life as I am not enough. I see it as I am not worth staying for. I see it as I will never be good enough. I see it as, and maybe not so much anymore, definitely more so as a kid, and these are things that I'm trying to heal, of course, but I see it as all of those things. Like, my parents left me after a bunch of neglect and harm, and so that's what my life amounts to. And my sister had them around and has all these different notions and feels very connected to my mom, so she feels wanted by that, and yet she feels not good enough for my dad, and therefore she feels that she's not good enough. She feels that she has to strive for approval, especially from men. And my mom sees the fact that she will be left and abused, and she sees me as someone who's always been treated better, and that is actually furthered by other things in our life and dynamic as well. And I actually don't know how my dad sees all of this. You know, I don't talk to him a lot, and I've talked to him the least out of all of us, but I'm sure that the dynamics and ways that he sees life are very skewed as well. So it is very easy, actually, for each of us to end up with different perspectives and core beliefs about ourselves in life. And it is inevitable that we come to them simply because no matter what, we have to have interactions with our parents and other people, including our siblings, growing up. So that is a little bit of a look inside the dynamics and beliefs in my family, in my blood family. I also have an adopted family that goes into a whole bunch of different stuff later on in my life too. And again, everything relates. So hopefully this allows you to look at some of those dynamics within your family a little deeper and start to figure out why the things are the way they are for you as well. And if any of those core beliefs need to be changed, hopefully it allows you to start seeing how and why they need to be changed. If you guys have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comment section below. I would love to have some conversations with you guys about anything of this, whether it's about my stuff, your stuff, just the world, who cares. If you guys liked this video, please subscribe. It would be totally helpful, and I will see you guys in next week's video.